Welcome, everybody. Everybody piling in. Ben, welcome. Crispy, welcome. Subway Whiteboard. Kristen, welcome. Craig, welcome. Roll call. Jerry. Jerry's got number 1 up there. BS got number 2. Yeah, Jerry, I got your boss on the phone right here. He wants a word with you. Joking. Yeah, welcome everybody. More time to pray. Yeah, good news and bad news, Jerry. Jerry, you're fired. Bad news. Good news is you'll have a lot more time to pray. Who's Father Chris Rimworld? All right, what are we doing? What are you doing with your life? I thought it was funny. Pat, Dr. David Patrick Harry's stream yesterday had some question uh, where he was like, what are you doing with your life? He was talking about, Christian ethics and not doing soy, gamma, beta, male stuff, and I was thinking, I was making jokes in the chat. Father Deacon, what do you do? I'm like, well, I precept grizzly bears. I wrestle grizzly bears with my precept arguments. What do you do? Is that tough enough for you? Catch fish with my bare hands and eat like a grizzly out of the river. And then I wrestle the bears all before going to class or liturgy. How about that? Is that manly enough for you? There's a father that plays video games? That's kind of unfortunate. In the new regime, I'm going to be banning video games, so you might as well get used to start trying to cut that out right now. We're banning certain words in the new empire. Video games, furries. The only games I like to play are mind games. Let's see if you can enter the maze of my mind and find your way out. Yeah. Ben and I always had like this funny relation. Like, Ben and I are going to be furry hunters. How about that, Cleve? We'll have a furry hunter hotline. If you see something, say something. Like, I think there's one outside right now. And it looks like it's an LCMS bastard. See something, say something. Um, yeah, furries are banned. Video games. Maybe only a certain amount. Otherwise, we'll have like officers come. It'll be based on a credit score too. Like, but credit score is like in terms of like virtue, like in things that you've done. Like, It'd be like you're a kid again. How about that? We'll have the regime will just parent you that if you've done well and done good by us and the Lord, you might get a few hours to play video games on the weekend after your homework's done. But certain stuff would be totally banned. Prawn, certain words. Um, can you imagine? We live in a world now where you have to debate somebody that whether being a furry is sinful. Good, good luck. No, just show up to Vespers. You need to be attending a while before you even get to the point of probably. You can't just show up to church like your first or second time, be like, I want to be a catechumen. You start regularly attending and you show the parish and the priest that this person is beyond just curious and interested, and then the priest, you can approach the priest and be like, I'd like to be a catechumen, and then you can go through the process being educated. Yeah, I don't know why people can, obviously blaspheming the Holy Spirit included being a furry, so it is the one unforgivable sin. We can spread the gospel by dressing up as an animal in a time when identity and uh, boundaries are all blurred from a group that sexualized all of this. Furries come out of a sexualized fetish. And that's how we'll do it. Yeah, this is. In the new regime, you immediately. Zoomers who defend this stuff immediately will have their driver's license revoked and voting rights. Do you really want people like this voting? We're having a meritocracy. Um, we need like a doge that goes through and just looks at if you're a degen, if you're an idiot, we'll have like a crew that goes through and just be like, yeah, I'm sorry, you've lost you won't be voting. Only the best. It's gonna be like, basically, it's just gonna end up being feudalism, right? We'll have lords and serfs. Sounds awesome. Public dress code, ban prawn, yeah. Repeal the 19th. Amen. I'll go further than the 19th. Like I said, if you're a degen, if you're a moron, you you can't vote. All right, let's look. If we got any more super chats? Nope. No, no, no. We'll have a lot of stuff we could go over. Jeez, dude. What do we got going? No, I have no idea about Cape Town. That's a funny question. Never been. Know nothing about Cape Town. Other than there's some good surf and sharks in the water. Great surf, a lot of sharks. That should keep the population of surfers down, right? The true Great White Valley. Yeah, it really is. There's a lot of great whites down there. All right. Should we do some philosophy? Cape St. Francis, yeah. I'd love to get down there and surf. Philosophy. Um, by the way, my paper's going well. What am I at? Oh, smokes. 9 pages. Right. Let's figure out what is how many words. 3,600 words. Let's do is in speech time. Word to speech calculator. Convert words to talk time. What did I say? 3,600? There's no way that's. There's no way. This doesn't make any sense. That a 9 page, not even double spaced paper is 30 minutes, 27 minutes? That's too short. What if I do slow talking? 36. Just doesn't. Does that seem right to you? I feel like maybe that is right. Okay, so what was the last conference I went to? Texas, right? How long was my paper? I'll look this up. Epistemic. Sophia paper 2025. Let's see how many. Because that's probably 30 minutes. Okay. So let's see how many. Words. Huh. 4,500 words. Okay. I guess that's right then. That just seems like reading a 10 page paper would be longer than 30 minutes. I don't even think I got through this in 30 minutes. I think I had to, where they're like, the time person's like cutting you off. And I was just like, okay, I'm skipping this section. I'm going to the next. We're going live. All right, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Furries are Nephilims. I'm writing a paper on for the conference, um, Athens and Jerusalem, and my paper is called "Why Come? Why Come Dat?" That's the name of my paper. Here, why come Dat? Who Dat? Why? How do you like? Why come Dat? Who Dat? Why? That's like. I should seriously. I bet nobody's done that. Just come up with a ridiculous title and got it like something published and presented in academia or something like that. Now I'm tempted, but that's not really my title. My title is From Athens to Apophaticism: Where to Find Knowledge, and it looks at philosophy emerging in Athens, and it also looks that our faith coming from Jerusalem, and how do we view philosophy is orthodox. Where to find knowledge? I mean, the very idea of knowledge, even if we took it to be something roughly around true justified belief, starts to look very different in the West. Where to find it and what it is as the East, where we have the experience of God. Anyways, my paper just kind of goes through this. It goes through a notion of personhood, the experience of God. I go into St. Justin Popovich and his paper on St. Isaac, the theory of knowledge. GOC is not part of the Orthodox Church. They're uncanonical. So just because somebody puts the word Orthodox on doesn't make it so. I saw somebody in Dr. David Patrick Harry's chat says they go to a church that's a Methodist church that's called the Orthodox Methodist Church. Like, does it make it the Orthodox? The problem is you can't. The church is conciliar, so you can't break off. We've never had any historical precedent of that. You can't, because before somebody gets a trial, the canons are just self-interpreters and condemn um, somebody before their trial and separates them out of the body of the church. And it's a weird type of like puritanical. It's actually very Protestant if you think about it. If you touch or look at somebody who secretly holds a heresy or publicly, you become contaminated too and are outside of the church. It's literally a mental illness. I don't know what to say about. So what do? We're the last true remnants of, and we're all keyboard warriors online. So they start an ethereal Dungeons and Dragons theology game in their head. I'm like, I purified everything of any contamination. Now I'm the true Orthodox Church. Not in communion anywhere. Where do you go to worship? Nowhere, in my head. Because there's only probably 5 or 6 of these schismatic groups in the United States. Let me see. I want to get it. Is it still going, the furry thing? People are insane. Like, also, they deny saints, really holy saints. Why? To keep the system. Obviously, they're wrong too. Everybody's in the entire Orthodox Church, all the saints are all wrong except the keyboard warriors that set up a parallel jurisdiction that's not in communion. Like, does that sound correct to you? Like, I don't know why this is confusing to people. All right, let's look, Cleve. Here we go. Bum 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 bum. Uh, You've got to be kidding me. Can I retweet? Hold on. Let's pull it up. So I just threw up in my mouth. I'm sorry I had to. I feel too. I'm one of those people. One of these streams, we're gonna pull up my psyche val and we'll just analyze who is Father Deacon Ananias. That would be a really great stream. Who is Father Deacon Ananias? Let's look up his psyche val. One of the things you'll find is that the more somebody pushes me in one side, the more I push. Like, I'm like the Newton law. For every action is opposite and equal react. I'm like, don't push me. I'll push back just as much. Insofar as if somebody like this, Cleve, was like, please debate me, please. Oh, why won't you still win? I'd be like, nope. It's like the schismatics. Come debate me. I'm like, because you asked, I'm not doing it. And the more, I just want to see you cry. And yeah, you won't debate. He's scared. I love it. Your freakouts make me stronger. The more you complain and cry and whine, the stronger and happier I get. So I feel like this guy. Why won't you? Oh, please. Oh, why won't you want to debate me? Oh. Look, this is so retarded. There's certain things, Cleve, you're absolutely correct. You should never actually stoop so low to have to. There's certain things that are worthy of debate, and there's certain things that aren't. It gives it too much, right? That it's actually something that should be debated. Like, no, this stuff should just be made fun of. So I agree with Cleve. Thank you for tagging me. Can you explain neo-Orthodox? No. Another thing. Why do I have to explain things that don't exist? Could you explain the existence of non-existing things? Alex, I will take. Non-existing things that exist that don't exist for 300, Alex. A release date? I'm putting it behind a paywall. Well, obviously it has to be done by the 20th before I fly out. But that would be, I never even thought about that. It'll be behind a paywall. You get to like, it's like the things that it's like the, those news articles you get to read like this much, and then it's like you have to pay. Andres, so just like I said, it's not confusing at all. Like, again, it's sort of like the way I talk about, like, somebody's like, how do we know dispensationalism true? I'm like, let's just kind of think about it. So, 1800 years, everybody was wrong in the church. Then a crazy cult, the Plymouth Brethren, crazy even by Protestant standards, comes about. Same cult that produced the famous Satanist, also known as the most evil man in the world, Aleister Crowley, produces another freakazoid, theological freakazoid, called John Nelson Darby, that comes up with a totally entire new theory that nobody's ever believed, that we have to wait 1800 years to get, from a fever dream. Then sponsored by the Rothschilds Bank to establish a modern secular state called Israel. Like, is that what I'm supposed to believe? Is that your story we're going with? It's like the same with, it should be pretty easy for you guys to discern, even if you're new, about the genuine Orthodox Church. A group of probably 70 to 80% mentally ill, literally, who, right, has a donatism kind of idea that if you secretly hold any heresy or get anything wrong, you're outside of the church before your day in court. So they don't even believe in synods and councils. Why? Because the canons are just self-interpreting, and if you get something wrong and you're clergy, you're automatically out of the church. That undermines why we even need councils. So they really deny all the councils. And if you even look at somebody who has heresy, you're contaminated and you're out too. Let's start from our keyboard warrior, autistic, theological Dungeons and Dragons games of canons, purified system in my head, set up a parallel jurisdiction, which we've never seen it ever happen in the church, in which you're the last true Orthodox, like, not in communion with anybody. Does that sound like, I mean, that shouldn't be confusing, right? Where do you go to services? Nowhere, because most of them don't, because there's just a bunch of autists online. There's only probably, what, 5, 6, like, schismatic parishes in the United States. So most of these people aren't even going to services. I mean, that should be pretty clear, right? This should not be confusing at all. Yeah, welcome, Father Ron. Oh, and you've got to deny a bunch of saints. They reject. Father Bless, good to have you on. All right. What? I have Bungo, I have no idea what you're talking about. Tears of a Clownshell. I'm gonna look that up. How many GOC? Good question. How many? I'm being hyperbolic. I'm guaranteed there's more than 10 or whatever, but 58 total and continental United States plus Canada and Latin America. Not much. That whole area? And the problem is then they schism from each other. See, then you have the GOCA and the HC. I mean, you can see it's Protestantism, right? How many in California? I know Etna's their big demon hive. But they're all, we'll build this. Actually, there are a lot in California. Holy smokes. 10 in California. Oh, a private home chat. Yeah. Gardena, Sonora, Oroville, Sacramento, Fresno, one in LA, San Bernardino, Cotati, and Redding. That is a lot, actually, more than I thought. Rats. Yes, Father, please send me that. Through scriptural. I can't answer who's my favorite questions anymore. I don't have favorites. it's more nuanced than. Somebody even asked, like, who's your favorite saint? And I'm like, I can't even answer that. I'm like, like, I don't know. Each one's different, and I have different relationships with. Thank you for joining. I usually ask who's my favorite. I'm like, they're all wrong, every single one of them. They're just some more than others. Some get more stuff right, but it's like. Well, by the way, Leibniz does have an interesting argument. We just went over Descartes. Yeah, I mean the problem with Descartes and Anselm and is first of all with Descartes it's demonic. So what is the fall of Lucifer? He looks away from the Holy Trinity, he looks at himself and his own ideas, and he basically declares that he is God. Like that's exactly what Descartes did. Notice in the icon of Christ the initials I am. No other saint has that. What philosopher actually says that? I think, therefore I am. It's an antichrist argument. God doesn't even exist. God's existence is dependent upon, do you notice all reversed? Descartes cogito, himself. And then it's just, oh, I've got this sure foundation that doesn't depend on a bunch of stuff, which is not true. So the student was asking me, like, but don't we believe that we do exist because we're there? I'm like, yeah. I said, that's not the problem. The problem is that can't be the starting point that doesn't depend. I'm like, that depends on a whole bunch of different stuff. Logical entailments, predications, meanings, the I. I mean, so it's a con. He's slipping in stuff that, like, pretending he's not. Again, with all these arguments, they all have this problem of I'm assuming a bunch of unjustified stuff that I haven't actually. And if it doesn't prove the Trinity, if it's not referring to, it's not an argument for the existence of God. So does Anselm, does it say the Trinity? Does Descartes say the Holy Trinity? Then it's not God. Like they're literally just making up something in their head. Just phantasms, is Vladimir Lossky says. Oh, I proved this imaginary phantasm in my head by which I put the title God. I'm like, that's all you're doing is you're inside your. And you go, you do it by going, well, just grant me all my unjustified assumptions about causality, inference, logic, the self, blah blah blah, metaphysical worlds, so that I can make my argument and win. It's like, why would I do that? So I think they're terrible. Yeah. How do we know that? How do we determine we even know anything? It already just presupposes. Do you have a worse philosopher? I don't know. Let's obviously women. Probably start there. Like I don't know. Pick a woman, and then like a feminist or gobbledygook. a gender study feminist phenomenologist, critical race theorist. Like, I'm sure there's tons of them you can pick from that are. Those are probably the worst. Yeah, I have a friend that quotes me like Hannah Arendt. I'm like, why are you quoting a Jew, a woman philosopher to me? Who was having an affair with a Nazi, Heidegger. It's so such a silly story. But yeah, I was talking with a godson about my buddy's like quoting my secular philosophers to well so and so. I'm like, who cares what so and so? Oh, another philosopher with an opinion, a garbage opinion. Hannah Arendt isn't the boss of me. Try hard. A charlatan. That's a good. That's hilarious. Oh, good one. Oh, Leibniz has an interesting argument. Uh, that I think Dr. Garrity brought up was the first time I'd actually heard. I'm not a Leibnizian scholar, but when I am, I'm just... So I was talking with Jim Bob about this, um, about facts, and so there's a fact that Caesar crossed the Rubicon right in 49 BC, correct? On a horse. Obviously, logically, the entailment is the horse obviously had a color, a particular color. We just don't have that recorded, but it's a fact. If it's a fact, where is it? It's not in any human mind. It's not out there in the world because it's past, but it is a fact. Therefore, it must be a fact in the mind of God. That's an interesting. Therefore, God exists. It's an interesting argument. All right. Do we have any super chats? Do I have to do the no talking until I get a super chat? Dave already gave one, so Dave's ahead of the game. Dave's the only one. Who cares? Just grant me a platonic hamster wheel in my head, exactly. We care a lot. There we go. Bree, 199. I care. Thank you, Bree. Thank you. Okay. It's like the thing that talks and you gotta put coins in. It's like, all right. Philosophy it is. Dave, did you see? Should we bring up the argument about there was somebody that was oh Thomas 2 pounds. Thoughts on Islamic philosophers like Avicenna and Alvarez, and I mean, they're interesting. I mean, read commentators on Aristotle. Like, it's interesting going through, but just like reading any type of commentators and Neoplatonic schools and stuff like that. Like, I mean, it's interesting to read. So there was somebody in that was asking about, they couldn't see why truth and normativity went together. Why can't truth? Why does truth imply oughts? It's driving me crazy that this person couldn't. It's got to be a type of conditioning. I want to go over though, but I think this comes up. Oh, truth is just a description. It doesn't mean you ought to believe it. And the argument was, ought I to believe that? And they said no. Which, first of all, I just find dishonest. I'm like, there's no way you believe that. You're trying to get around the obvious. Of course, you believe that I ought to believe that. Why are you talking to me if you don't think I ought to believe that? Autism is something worse. Yeah. So it's like, well, you got to prove that. Well, it's just a distract. So I'm like, okay, ought I to believe that? And they weren't getting it. They then make another. I'm like, ought I to believe that? So we're just going through different, like, down the line. I'm like, you're just passing the buck. He's like, an infinite amount of no's. I'm like, then it comes back that I don't have to believe that truth is just descriptive and I don't. It's like, how's that the case? I'm like, so anyways, I've made some actually really good formal arguments. Yeah, why are they even presented? So let's go over those. They're actually kind of complicated. And then there was like, I don't get it. It's too complicated. I'm like, well then, just surrender. I don't know. That's what the argument is. What's the formal logical proof of it? Like, if you can't get it, I don't know what to tell you. I said, I think it's you got a you problem. It's total spurging. It's intellectual wanking, is what it's like, and sophistry. It drives me crazy. Drives me madness. Oh, Dave, you sent a message. What is this?
I was taken up and I don't know why. I'm pretty sure I got enough sleep.
Oh, funny. All right, Dave, Hardy Har. But I do enjoy refuting people and people's arguments. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. It's just like a honeypot for Spurgs, our philosophy, our Orthodox Christian Discord philosophy section. Over here. Come on. Come on over here. Come. Yeah, I gotcha. You fell for it. Right into the honeypot. Yeah, it's back. It's similar. I mean, it's exactly the kind of similar argument that, like, there is no objective truth. Is that true? And they'll be like, no, because it's not object. It's like, and they think that it's like, it's already entailed in there. Prove it. Prove it. Like, because you already believe that I ought to believe that, or that it's. Hold on a second. We're back. Hi. Thank you for your patience in that short intermission break. Paja's in the chat? What are you talking about? I see. It was Josephus Dyer. I'll call him back. But I just thought it'd be funny to pick up the phone. All right, let's go. Burp. To Discord. Truth doesn't imply any odds. That's the hill this guy's gonna die on. Ought I to believe what you just said? No, and that's. What if I could have just took a turn and just been like, yes, you do. I don't believe you. Do you see it's an intellectual wanking exercise? It's like, of course you believe, like, don't lie to me. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on here telling me that. Should actually just be meaner next time. Just then get out of here. Shut up. If you don't believe I ought to believe that, then get off my Discord. Get off my lawn. Get off my philosophical lawn. All right. This guy wants to spurg. He wants me to destroy him with logic. People cruising for a bruise and just love the beatdowns and abuse. It's weird. No ad infinitum. Then you lost. How so? That's always the house, and I'm like, yeah. If it's, even though there's no way to get back to the first to confirm what you're saying, that truth doesn't imply a not, and he just repeats. If truth is just sit there, I said it sounds like you. He can't get the argument, and then it's like I don't know what to tell you. If you can't understand the argument, why is that my problem? All right, you want it? I'll give it to you. Here it is. If it's true that truth doesn't logically imply normativity, i.e. odds, then the proposition truth doesn't logically imply normativity is true. That's P implies Q. That's the first one. If P implies Q, then P implies Q also implies the proposition. I'm calling the proposition R. Okay. However, if P implies Q implies the proposition P implies Q, i.e. R, then I implies the proposition about that. Let's call that proposition S. But if P implies Q implies R and S, then P implies Q also implies the proposition about that. Call that T. Therefore, P implies Q implies R and S and T, and so on ad infinitum. Consequently, to affirm P implies Q, namely 1, what his position was, that requires affirming an infinite number of propositions. And since we are finite, cannot affirm an infinite number of propositions, we cannot affirm P implies Q. Therefore, you can't ever affirm truth doesn't logically imply normativity. So by impossibility, the contrary must imply. I got 3 fires there, guys. That's it. It's a logical proof. Game's over. Don't mess with the professor of logic. Oh, yeah. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find it. Professor of logic. That's just one proof. I got like 10 more. All right, I'm trying to look on my channel. Hold on. Yeah, here we go. Ready? You guys ready for this?
Teacher of logic, Dr. Deacon, Ananias. Teacher of logic, teacher of logic, Dr. Deacon, Ananias. Teacher of logic, Dr. Deacon, Ananias. Teacher of logic, Dr. Deacon, Ananias. Teacher of logic. Another good lecture, another good lecture, another good lecture, another good lecture. Another good lecture, 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 another good lecture.
The bell is rung, and class is now in session. Broadcasting coast to coast from beautiful Montana, put your chin in your hand and think along with your resident professor of philosophy, Father Dr. Deacon Ananias Sorum.
It's so stupid. Anyways. Not gonna win. Not gonna win it. Not this time. Another good intro. You're gonna beat. You want a logic beat down from the logic professor. All right. Let's go to some more arguments. Logical beatdowns. Also, there's another logic beatdown for you. It's the logical fallacy of affirming the consequent. Affirming the consequent is if P then Q, Q therefore P. So this gentleman's argument is if truth is only descriptive, then the truth doesn't require one ought to believe it to be true. 2, truth doesn't require one ought to believe it's true, therefore truth is only descriptive. Congratulations, you just did the fallacy of affirming the consequent. So try to do a modus ponens. Let's see what happens. Because that's the other way. But like, well, I'll affirm the antecedent. You can't be serious. I'll just affirm the antecedent. And I won't be committing a fallacy. Go for it, dude. I dare you. I triple logic dare you. See what happens. Put it this way. If truth doesn't imply oughts, then the statement that truth doesn't imply oughts is true if P then Q. Truth doesn't imply oughts, so I'm affirming the antecedent that there's no fallacy there. Therefore, my statement, the truth doesn't imply oughts, is true. So you could go that way. Watch what I do. That is a modus ponens. But it's a valid deductive argument means if the premises are true, then, right. Obviously, in a conditional, on the first premise, I want to ask the question, how do I know P is true? How do I know number 2, excuse me, which is the P in the conditional, the first? Is that right? But this is, let's see. Yeah, but this Q in the conditional, the first one. Yeah, sorry, I said it wrong. I can't have the conditional P be true and Q be false. The condition would be false in logic. For those of you who took my logic class, you remember that from the truth tables. So how do I know Q? How is it Q is justified? All right. However, if we ask, this Q in the conditional of the first is true if P is justified. That's okay. So now it just moves. How do we know that P is justified? We get the following. If P, then Q, and if Q, then P. Also could be abbreviated P if and only if Q. Logic. Guess what? That is the formal definition of logical circularity. So it's false. So you try to get out of the affirming the consequent fallacy by actually doing a valid argument modus ponens, and I'll just tell you, I'll just reduce it to the definition, logical definition of circularity. If P, then Q, and if Q, then P. So. Lastly, once I get through all these arguments, you're going to have to face God on Judgment Day. God said, that's why. How about that? You can make an Aristotelian argument as well. So let's go over an Aristotelian argument. in Aristotle's physics, first line of the physics, all men by phusis desire to know, all men by nature. Knowledge entails truth. Why? Because some of the necessary conditions for knowledge is true justified belief. Therefore, since nature implies teleology, oughts. I mean, think about it. There's a nature to apple tree, then it ought to, right, grow to its end, its telos. If your nature is that you, as Aristotle say, ought to know or believe what is true for the right reasons, then truth entails oughts. So how about that? More? Like I say, even if you can answer one of those objections, you got 10 more waiting down the list, and in the end you face God. So you're not going to win against the professor of logic, and even if you could, there's going to be 10 more arguments. Here's another one. Belief aims at truth. If something aims at truth, there's teleology. Teleology implies that the thing ought to reach its goal. Therefore, you ought to believe what is true. Bam. Let's do a non-philosophical argument, or at least less philosophical. Isn't it just clear, just like this, you believe someone ought to believe things are true. So you're just being dishonest and sophistry, just trying to get out of it. Number two, less philosophical argument. Just look at the amount of mental gymnastics you got to do to get around the obvious. That's a sign itself. But if I do, what if I... It's like... All right. Questions about... I keep going, but I think those are sufficient arguments. Obviously, truth implies normativity. Quit being an idiot. Quit messing around and wasting my time. A typical logical dare you. Oh, that's a good one. So I like that. I can't do logic because my mom taught me to wash my P's and Q's in public. Good. I like it. Yeah, I would say that too. By the way, the naturalistic philosophy is not a problem for us. That's a problem for materialists and nominalists. Why? It's not because in nature there are natures, essences. There's teleology. If you're if your metaphysics is real essentialism, so like that's why those transcendentals are like the classical transcendentals: truth, beauty, goodness, obviously normativity and stuff like that. They're like Venn diagrams. They're distinct, but they overlap. One implies the other. But in a real essentialist metaphysical view, there's not a problem. It's like we bring up, you can't get an is from an ought in a materialist, nominalist worldview. And ultimately that would go back to why Well, because like God created nature and essences to be that way. So ultimately it does go back to Christ because all things are created, but it's like that's why. One who created it to be that way. That's why truth and normativity are logically implied by one another. Yeah. Verum bonum pulcherum, not unum, the one, the good, the the true, the good, the one, unum pulcherum is the nominative case. Just to spurg out on conjugations. What if somebody says about the argument there's semantic? So we shouldn't believe in meanings? Like, that's probably what I'd be like. Yeah, words have meaning. Ought I to believe they mean that? Otherwise, get off my semantic lawn. Like, why are you having a conversation with me? That's probably what. If I'm not supposed to, there's no ought to believe that words have certain meanings and semantics. Why are you on my yard? I'm calling the cops. You're on my semantic yard. Why did you let your dog take a semantic dump on my semantic yard? That's what I'd be like, what are you doing? Are you pooping on my semantic poop? Are you lost, S.A.? Hey, Holmes, are you? You're not from around here, eh? All right. That was fun. Other arguments. Maybe this started it off something from like a refutation to determinism. I think somebody was having a hard time. We could go over that. But there's probably not enough money in the super chat till. That's too bad. Father Ron, I got it. I got your homily. It came. Oh, cool. You did it on. Right on. Didn't we talk about this when we last saw each other? But thank you, Father. 911, what's your emergency? Got some aggressive semantic trespasser taking a steamer on my semantic steamer on my lawn. It smells really bad too. Ugh. Ugh. What? I'm using metaphors for full for crap arguments. Literally. Crap arguments. Crappy arguments. Yeah. Here I come. Thomas Maps 2 £8. Simple arguments again. Kay also did $4.99. Father, do you have... Do your thing. Never mind. Wait. Yeah, I think Dr. Stephen DeLay, also my friend, colleague, Dr. Mark Bernier, good existentialist. Like, some of it's really close to orthodoxy. So look at that. Um, yeah, actually, I've got a great argument. A simple logical argument against nominalism. Let me just pull it up. Mind. I mean, this is indirectly proves it because I was actually trying to prove that the intellect is immaterial. I mean, there's many ways I could do it, but I was interested. I actually came up with this argument when I was in grad school because I was teaching. One of the professors had me teach his logic class, so like I just started, and I was writing philosophy of mind. My PhD dissertation, it just kind of came together, and I was like, be interesting if I could just prove the mind was immaterial just from valid, unconditionally valid forms through a kind of vertical, where each a vertical argument through valid syllogism, deductive syllogisms, in which the premises of the next argument were proven by the conclusion of the previous one. So that's why it's a vertical. It's dependent on. But I think it's a pretty simple, straightforward way to. Hold on, I'm trying to zoom. Some of you might have seen me do a video on this, but I haven't talked about it for a while, so. I just kind of wrote out the steps of what I'm going to do. There's basically 10 steps in this argument. The first one is an AEE figure 2 syllogism, which is unconditionally valid. I use the Boolean modern, so I don't have to worry about existential import and stuff like that. That the thing that so the difference between the modern versus the Aristotelian is that something's conditionally valid for Aristotle whether it actually exists or not. But with universal propositions like A and E's, for Boole, it doesn't depend on whether the thing exists or not. To get an empty set. Now that's really important because I knew I'd be accused of assuming what I want to prove, that universals exist. If universals exist, they have an ontological status and they're not a name, then obviously nominalism is false. So I had to figure out a way just from the name. I'm like, I'll grant that to you and I'll still get there. And the way that I had to do that is make sure that I didn't do an existentialist fallacy, and an existential fallacy that's on the Boolean interpretation. So I actually use the Boolean interpretation. And that's a list of all, on the Boolean, the modern view, all the unconditionally valid syllogistic forms. Okay, so I start with an AEE figure 2 syllogism. I convert it. That's step 2. Step 3, I take an EIO figure 2 syllogism. And then I move to, and what I'm doing, notice the last one, that's the conclusion, because a valid argument is if the premises are true, it's impossible for the conclusion to be false. So you're going to want to question, obviously here, people, like I've heard people like, no materialist or nominalist will grant that, and be like, I know, that's why I didn't start. But if you actually say the argument's wrong, it's not sound, you're going to have to show, okay, what premise is false? So notice I start here. That's why it's game over at premise 1. I mean, argument 1. The E becomes now a premise, so you can't say, nuh-uh, it's like you have to go back. Well, E was the conclusion of the first argument. Then what do we notice? The conclusion here becomes here, O. And then this O becomes that O, right? So on and so on. So you can't just say nuh-uh. Eventually, it's going to go back to what was wrong, what was untrue about either the A or the E proposition. Well, I set it up that way on purpose. Like, just like, you know, chess, game over in the first move. All right, let's look at it. All physical things are particulars. What do we mean by that? Well, point to something physical. It's not an all, right? It's not like there's triangleness. It's a triangle, particular. All physical things are like that. No universals are particulars. How do I know that? That's actually just how they're defined in a logic book. Now, somebody's tried to object and said, what if you have a list of different universals? Isn't one particular? I'm like, okay, then you're equivocating. Obviously, this is just, are you telling me you couldn't read a logic book and know what the chapter means on defining what a universal versus a particular? So again, you're being a semantic sophist. Like, clearly you know what that. Then somebody says, well, no nominalist would grant you that universals exist, and you're assuming what you want to prove. Nope, because I use the Boolean interpretation. And guess what? Those two propositions, universal affirmative, universal negative, have no existential import. Okay? So, can't get out of that. Conclusion, therefore, is impossible that it's false. It must be true. No universals are physical things. I convert it. On a conversion of E proposition, it has a logical equivalent truth value. No physical things are universals. And I'm doing that so I can get the valid deductive syllogism unconditionally. It wouldn't work otherwise if I kept it the subject and predicate of the conclusion and I had to actually convert it. So I have an E proposition in which I converted that. No physical things are universals. Some concepts are universals. Okay, I've seen people try to push back on, but that's actually just definitionally true. Some concepts are actually defined, like some actually define all concepts as universals, but nobody could argue that some concepts aren't. Okay? Some concepts are not, therefore, physical things. Okay, take that. Some concepts are not physical things. All concepts are in the mind. Some things in the mind are not physical things. We'll translate some things in the mind are not physical. I make that into an OAE figure 3. Some things in the mind are not physical things. All things in the mind are part of the mind. Right? Just definitionally, parts of a whole are parts of the whole is basically what that's. Some part of the mind is not physical. Not physical is translated immaterial. And so actually materialism, which would be no things are immaterial. So that's an E proposition. What's the contradiction? Some things are. So anyways, I've already got to universals, right? They're obviously not names, so I think it's a pretty like, I know that says concepts, but it's not the same thing as, at least it's like what this proves is what's called moderate realism, that nominalism or conceptualism is false. Anyways, there it is. There's another logical, irrefutable proof for other questions. I mean, this could be easier. There's kind of like the Bertrand Russell argument. It's just because Bertrand Russell had kind of almost like a Platonic kind of view of universals against nominalism. If things are just names that bear similarities, a property, then I have to appeal to a universal. And if somebody says that universal is just a name, then what is it that those universals names that aren't actually universals have in like you'd have to appeal to? It would go on ad infinitum unless there was actually a universal that existed that buck end that it stops there. So that's another straightforward kind of argument refuting. It can't just be names ad infinitum. Are numbers like 4 universals? No number are universals. That's 4. Maybe next time we'll go over arguments refuting determinism. What's the easiest way to demonstrate what? Numbers are universals? Kind of the way that I just... Numbers aren't physical, like, things. Remember the two coconuts? If number was identical to a physical thing, then that's what 2 would be, like 2 apples, 2 oranges. But if 2 was identical to a physical thing, then those physical things by transitive property would be identical to each other. Apples would be oranges, and that's not obviously true. So therefore, must be a concept. And if the concept is simply a name, then I'm in an infinite regress, like the Bertrand Russell. Therefore, it must actually be a real essence. It's a universal. Who's running this? Am I still waiting for the long super chat question before I go? Another one came up. There's a guy that wrote me. This isn't. I'll have to write back. Jay did some debates with atheists. Jay says the universe as a whole is both accidental and meaningless. If it is, that would render every particular thing within the universe, every word, argument that comes out of atheist's mouth, accidental and meaningless. Yes. But then he asks, isn't it the fallacy of division? I've heard this a lot. No, fallacy of division is the erroneous attribution of parts of the whole to. But think about it, if I have a class of triangles, it's a set. Doesn't that mean they all have 3 sides, like every particular? So I move from the whole to the part. We do this in logic all the time. That's not the fallacy of composition. So people never understand. It's like if you appeal to authority, it's a foul. It's like, no, it's the erroneous appeal to. What's another one that? It's not because you do it makes it a fallacy. It's because it's actually doesn't follow. It's erroneous, and then you name it. But like, well, what went wrong? Like, what would we call that? Attacking somebody's character is not necessarily a fallacy. So I don't know why people get. Here's another example. The whole, i.e. the number 7, is a prime. So every part of it is its only digit 7 is a prime. A part. Something as a whole is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That every part of the segment of it would be 100. The whole pie is poison. So let's just test if you actually think it's a fallacy in every. Yeah, but it doesn't mean if I eat a piece of it, it'll be poison. It's like, actually, it does. I mean, it's just so. It should be intuitive. If the whole doesn't have it. I mean, think about this. So you have a whole society, and you say no one has money in this. Yeah, but isn't that fallacy of composition? Just because the whole doesn't have money doesn't mean an individual does. It's like, actually, that's exactly what it means. If it's accidental, right, and meaningless as a whole, then every part of it is too, everything you're saying. So I've heard this come up before. I think people really get confused by the names of fallacies and just think it's the name that makes it a fallacy, not that there's something going wrong and then you name it after the fact. But I thought that was an interesting question. Came in an email. Also, he says he's heard atheists claim the universe never actually came into existence. Exist timelessly. So making it accidental wouldn't make sense. Why? Again, people get so caught up in the time question, whether the universe had a beginning, like when we're asking what's behind the universe. It's like, no, I mean epistemically. Semantically, like ultimately your principle is going to be God, who has a mind, as a person, and has intention behind it, or the opposite accident. Like, so people were like, yeah, but can we give a story about how stuff from pure chance came to not be accidental? That's not what I'm like. I don't think you could. Actually, I think that's retarded, but that's not what the question is. I'm asking an epistemic and semantic question, not like, how did it evolve? And couldn't this? I'm saying you're taking a word that means something. Part of that means it can't be this. It precludes accident. Knowledge precludes accident. So I'm asking you, what is that word? How do you explain knowledge, law, or any of these things using the thing that it excludes? I'm not asking you to give me a story about how things evolve or whether the universe had a beginning. I just don't understand why this is so, like, I literally gave this to 7, 9-year-olds and they got it. And people were like, I don't get tagged in the whole accident. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. So this, all right. Somebody was supposed to write is a long super chat. I'm waiting. How long do I have to wait? I don't see it come in. All right. Oh, sorry. Jesus Christus, I misinterpreted our numbers like 4 universals. Yeah. All right, that's it. We are shutting down. May the Lord God bless you. Next time, we will go into what are the arguments against determinism. Any other super chats? Just make sure I didn't miss any. All right. May you have a blessed Saturday. May the Lord bless you in Vespers. May be blessed in the liturgy. And then have a wonderful week. Please pray. Can I ask a prayer request from all of you? I'm worried about like with the government shutdowns and the cuts, like 10% with the air traffic controllers and canceling flights. I saw what, 12, 13 days till I fly out to the conference. We have a layover in Denver that's like really short. It's 45 minutes. It's too short. It's cutting it too close if there are any delays. There is a slight concern that what if, flights are canceled, so just pray that, hopefully things will be resolved by then. One thing that dawned on me that I can't get an answer from. Okay, so it's stuck in gridlock, and the Republicans obviously are not going to budge with such unreasonable demand. Let's give free health care to invaders. Is nobody talking about, like, it's not just a healthcare issue, like, obviously the debt, like, we're shutting the guy under the government if you don't, like, kill yourself or eat your children or something, like, and then the people are like, oh, stupid politicians. They're both, it's like, this is the Dems, like, you do realize this. They're totally unreasonable. Well, they're not going to budge. But the thing is, I'm like, so why does the government have to be shut down? Like, why are people being held hostage because they're at an impasse? Nobody's ever explained that to me. Like, is there some type of logical entailment? If I can't agree, it means the government shuts down. Why has nobody asked this question? We're being held hostage, right? And all you idiots that think Democrats are concerned about the poor and social programs, why are you not seeing that they're full of crap? They obviously don't. It's, I could read you. Chuck Schumer, every day gets better for us. Is the poor suffer. This is what they're saying. They're keeping the poor suffering while telling you we care for the poor. See, we want food stamps and social programs for and health. Like, obviously you don't, because you don't care that people aren't getting stuff right. Bernie Sanders says if you reopen the government, we'll lose leverage. So that explains. Catherine Clark, there will be families that are going to suffer. But it's one of those few leverage times that we have. Congratulations, Dems. Are you Orthodox, like, vote Democrat? Like, I don't know what's the matter with you. But it still doesn't make any sense. Who said you could shut down the government because of the input? Like, I don't even know how historically that even came up, or like why that has to be. So the whole country is going to crumble because it's like, well, it's logically entailed. If you have an agreement, government has to shut down. Who said that? Who told you that? That's what doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, one flew airplanes. They're not seeding the sky with the chemtrails. Okay. I'll just check one last time any super chats. Otherwise, I'm heading out. God bless you guys. Pray my flights aren't canceled, because I really want to see all of you in Florida, and I'm really looking forward to that. So may be blessed. May the Lord protect all those who are flying in. give them safe travels and not cancel the flights. And until next time, God bless all of you. Bye bye.